Good evening, my name is James Curley, and tonight I will be giving you a glimpse into the American melting pot, immigrants and minorities' effects on the American political system and elections. E pluribus unum is the de facto motto of the United States of America, and it is a phrase that every American should readily recognize. The Latin phrase, which translates to, out of many, one, has been tattooed to U.S. currency and is engraved upon almost every government building or national monument. Third reason, too. This unofficial motto accurately describes the government and culture of the United States. From 50 states there is one nation. From countless heritages, religions, and creeds, there stands one American people. One of the U.S.'s greatest points of pride is that we do not consist of one nationality, but of a multitude. The U.S. is a nation of immigrants, which began with the Pilgrims and exploded due to the economic success of the American experiment. And as America became more and more successful, more people began to immigrate to this new world. With all of these immigrants crossing the Atlantic and Pacific Ocean, America has blossomed into one of the most ethnically diverse and culturally rich nations in the world. While it is nice to glorify this American melting pot, we still have to examine the hardships that both immigrants and minorities overcame and are still overcoming today. Though harshly discriminated against, minorities and immigrants play a massive role in the American political system as both voters and politicians. Tonight, I will examine three very different groups of Americans: Irish Americans, African Americans, and Hispanic Americans, and examine their effect on the U.S. political system during the 19th, 20th, and 21st century.
My grandmother came from Russia, a satchel on her knee. My grandfather had his father's cap he brought from Italy. They'd heard about a country where life might let them win. They paid the fare to America and there they melted in. A lovely lady Liberty with her book of recipes and the finest one she's got. The great American melting pot, the great American melting pot.
America was founded by the English,
but also by the Germans, Dutch, and French.
The principle still sticks, our heritage is mixed. So any kid could be the president.
In 1990, Michael Walzer wrote a piece titled, "What Does It Mean to Be an American?" And he started by examining the name America and how it reflected our nationalism. It is a name that doesn't even pretend to tell us who lives here. Anybody can live here, and just about everyone does. While there were Irish that had already moved to America by the 19th century, there was a spike in immigration in the 1840s due to the Great Irish Potato Famine. During this influx, Irish Americans, particularly Irish Catholics, became the target of discrimination from Anglo-Protestant Americans. The formation of the American Republican Party, better known as the Know Nothing Party, marked the peak of Irish discrimination in America. Walzer describes the Know Nothing's MO. Anti-Irish and anti-Catholic bigotry played a large part in mobilizing support from the American Party. Its religious critique focused on the ostensible connection between Catholicism and tyranny. Resulting from this prejudice, Irish Americans became hard-pressed to find work. Gangs formed and increased crime rates. While many detested this Irish diaspora, some like Boss William Tweed saw these immigrants as an opportunity. By catering to Irish Americans, the political machine known as Tammany Hall was able to earn immigrant voters to win elections. The Democratic Party allowed Irish Catholics to climb through its political ranks, allowing New York to elect the Irish Catholic Governor Al Smith to 3 terms, and he also earned a Democratic presidential nomination in 1928. James Michael Curley was elected mayor of Boston on several occasions. Mayor Curley was so popular with the people of Boston that he earned his final re-election while campaigning from his jail cell on corruption charges. This wave set Irish Catholics up for their biggest victory as Senator John F. Kennedy was elected president in 1960, marking the first and only time an Irish Catholic has held the position. Though Irish Americans were on the losing end of discrimination at the turn of the century, it hardly compares to the discrimination that African Americans during the 19th and 20th century following the Civil War and the abolition of slavery faced. Jim Crow laws were state and local laws that ensured a segregated and prejudiced America from the late 1800s up until the 1960s. Unlike the Irish, who were hurried into voting booths, roadblocks were set up to prevent African Americans from casting their vote. Literacy tests, poll taxes, and grandfather clauses were just some of the loopholes inserted into southern state constitutions that would prohibit the majority of blacks from voting. Brown versus Board of Education marked the beginning of the end of segregation in the United States and was a major moment for aspiring African American politicians. Anthony Lewis outlines the importance and the effects of Brown versus Board in his 2009 piece, A New National Scripture. The Brown case had an additional significance. It inspired blacks in the South to demand their rights as they never had before, without waiting for lawsuits. Black college students began sitting in drugstore lunch counters to demand service. Rosa Parks and countless others suffered hardship to protest the humiliation of being forced to sit in the back of the bus. A few years after this case, President Lyndon Baines Johnson appointed the first black member of the Supreme Court, Thurgood Marshall. Under the Bush administration, Colin Powell and Condoleezza Rice were named Secretary of State. And again, the biggest victory for African Americans politically was when Barack Obama was elected to the presidency in 2008. Hispanic Americans have yet to have a politician as monumental as the president, but things may be looking up for the aspiring Hispanic politicians. Immigration is a keystone issue in each presidential election, but with the 2010 immigration law being passed in Arizona, immigration is now at the center stage. There is a direct correlation between the passing of this act and the recent spike in Latino voter turnout. About 10 million Hispanic Americans voted in 2008, and that number increased to 12 million in 2012. This has been a growing problem for Republicans since in 2008, Senator John McCain could only garner 30% of Latino voters. And in 2012, Governor Mitt Romney saw no improvement when he received only 31% of the Hispanic vote. Many feel that the time is now for the GOP to put Hispanic politicians in the public eye. Dana Bash of CNN had discussed Marco Rubio, Republican senator from Florida, as a potential running mate for Romney in the 2012 election. For many Republicans, Rubio is a prime running mate material. A fresh-faced, telegenic Tea Party favorite from Florida, a key battleground state. Of course, Paul Ryan got onto the ticket instead, but is now the time for a Hispanic politician to step up into a presidential role? The Democrats enlisted the Irish in hopes of gaining votes. Might this be the time for Republicans to do the same?